Hi everyone, David Aragona and Mike Beer here, taking a look at the feature race at Churchill Downs on Saturday. Race 10 is the Chorleywood Stakes, a listed stakes going the mile and 3/8 distance on the turf course. 10 runners entered for this race, Mike, and this is a really intriguing one to handicap. A lot of quality in this race for only a listed stakes.
It's a really, really good field. And several of these horses, too, have already sort of run against each other, David. So you got some races to compare and contrast to. It just felt like a lot of different horses could win here, and trips would be pretty important.
Felt like this race was helped by some of the weather issues in Saratoga last week, as a couple of horses in here were entered in stakes at the spa and scratched for a number of reasons. One off the turf, another one I think was it just decided to run here instead, maybe a slightly easier spot than a grade one event. So definitely bolsters the quality of this stakes event. And unsure exactly who's going to go favorite in here. Haven't seen the morning line yet. I imagine horses like the number 3 Utah Beach and the number 8 Highway Robber will attract support just based on their strong recent form, but it is a very competitive affair. Let's take a look at the Timeform US pace projector for this race to get a sense of how these horses might sort themselves out towards the front end through the first half mile. These pace projectors are always tough to read in marathon races, Mike. It's so much dependent on the jockey intention. I suppose a horse like the number 6 Lambbeath could have a little bit of speed getting on turf for the first time, but that really does depend on how well he handles the surface, having never tried it before. Lord Bullingdon, Segoy, those are horses that have done some of their best work towards the front.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be interesting to see if Lambeth, I guess there's enough pedigree there to suggest that he could handle the turf here. And if he does handle it, I guess he could be forward in here just based on his last 2 starts. We'll see how they decide to ride him. I thought this pace, it was tough to decipher. And I didn't think they're not going to be going fast in here, David, but I didn't think they were going to be walking either.
Let's go through this field from the rail, beginning with one of those horses that's shown forwardly placed on the pace projector, the number 1 Lord Bullingdon. And Mike, I think that really is based upon his last race when he led from gate to wire in a 9-furlong turf race at Churchill Downs. Getting a little class relief probably helped him. He's a horse that was kind of on a steady diet of graded stakes for a long time. Wasn't always getting ideal trips out in Southern California, was hung wide on the turns a few times. And I always felt he was a horse that was a little better than some maybe his results indicated. Got the job done last time, but now not only is he stepping up in class, but he's got to prove that he's a true marathon horse, which he's never really tried before.
Yeah, I wonder about the distance with this horse. I feel like maybe you and I had the same opinion about him as a younger horse, particularly 2 and 3 year old. I really thought there was a chance that there was a big breakthrough coming for this horse and he was going to upset a stakes field. It's kind of unfortunate for him. He really never got started as a 3-year-old last year. 3 starts early in the year, and then he missed a bunch of time. So it's going to be interesting to see how much more he can develop. I liked his last win. I wasn't blown away by it, if I'm being honest, but I liked it, and I don't think he needs to be ridden that way to be effective. So I spent a long time looking at him. I think he's going to be a fair price in here, and I want to use him somewhere.
Mike, a horse I spent a long time looking at that's going to be a big price in this race is the number 2 Tappet Shoes, and I'll spoil, I left him out of my picks completely, but I was trying to get there with this horse because there are some things to like about him. He got pretty good over the winter at Turfway Park and felt like as soon as he was getting added distance, it really improved his form. He won that 1.25-mile race with a 98 buyer back in January, and I know if you just look at the short comments in your PPs, it might not suggest that he had trips in a few races, but he has had less than ideal trips in a few of his recent races. Got badly steadied in the Dust Commander, a race that he probably was going to win. The Kentucky Cup didn't work out, but he had a real trip in that race. The Call Protection 1-2 back, where he got shuffled back around the far turn and then was running on at the end. And the last time in the Louisville, I mean, he encountered Rebel Red, who fell and clipped heels, and he had to hurdle that horse, lost his rider. So obviously that's a race you could just draw a line through. This horse might be better than a lot of his recent efforts look. However, this might still be a little too tough a spot for him.
Yeah, I think we sort of went through the same process with him because I think most people might just look at him and say, well, he's a better horse on synthetic and maybe even dirt than he is on turf. But the turf races are very spread out. He's run on it so infrequently. And as you've already pointed out, he's actually run way better than it looks at a bunch of those races. I think we went through the same process here. I couldn't get to him, but he's an interesting horse at a big price.
Yeah, if I'm playing trifectas in this race, he's a horse that I'm definitely going to throw into the mix underneath somewhere because I could see him picking up a piece at the end. The number 3 is Utah Beach, and he is just a horse that's been in a great form recently. He's always one that hinted at potential and felt like when they were able to get him into a consistent rhythm running these marathon distances, he would realize his full potential. And it seems like he's done that lately, winning 2 stakes in a row, earning a Grade 2 victory in the Elkhorn against a field that was probably tougher than this one, and the last time in the Grade 3 Louisville. Obviously, the race got a little bit easier when there was an incident heading into the far turn, but this horse was probably going to be winning anyway, earning a career best 100 buyer. He's gotten pretty good trips in those 2 wins, Mike, but he's drawn a good post once again, and it feels like Vincent Cheminot just rides him really well.
Yeah, I just can't really knock what he's done lately. He got a absolute perfect trip when he won the Elkhorn 2 starts back, but he got the job done there, and that was a decent field as well. Last time he had to come a little wider. Versstopen, who's also in here, just sort of opened a clear lead on him in the upper stretch in that race, and Utah Beach just came. Not only did he close him down, David, he just sort of ran right over that horse at the end of this race. I thought that was the best performance from this horse to date. He just comes right back in a spot where he's really, really logical.
I was referencing that incident in the Louisville. It took out one of his main rivals, the number 4, Rebel Red, who we'll get to next. And Mike, this horse, it was much publicized last summer. He lost his left eye in a stall accident. And I think the jockeys who ride him always have to be a little bit careful about that and him not having full sight lines. And you could see that was really the issue in the incident in the Louisville, because he got into a tight spot. A horse sort of backed up on the inside. It really tightened things up in mid-pack. And Declan Cannon was trying to get him to angle outside of the horse in front of him. And he turned his head all the way to the right, but he's blind in his left eye. Couldn't see in front of him. And he just ran right into the back of the horse in front of him, clipped heels, and unfortunately fell. Good news that he's coming back with no layoff. So it all seems fine with him physically. Cherie DeVaux wouldn't be running him if there was an issue coming out of that race. But still, Mike, you do have to be a little bit concerned about the sort of trip this horse will work out. That said, when he gets a trip, it's obvious he has talent.
Yeah, exactly. You do have to worry about things like that. And I guess if he, takes a little bit of money in here again, then, you want to at least take a second look and decide, how short you really want to go on him. That being said, it did seem like at the time of that incident last time, and you described it perfectly, David, he was getting ready to get going in that race. He was just about to make his move in that race, and it all went wrong for him. I thought he actually ran an underrated race 2 starts back also. When Utah Beach beat him off of a perfect trip, this horse had to come wide. He was unable to get going. I think when Jose Ortiz wanted to get him going around the final turn, he had to wait just a little bit, and then he just had a lot to do in the stretch. I thought he ran really well that day.
Yeah, and good news is Jose Ortiz has ridden this horse the most, knows him really well in his quirks, and he is back aboard here. The number 5, GoldenEye, feels like one of the tougher horses to make a case for in this race, Mike. He's just never earned a speed figure that puts him on the level of these horses. He was continually improving through last season, felt like he got better as the distances got longer, but he tried Graded Stakes Company in the Hollywood Turf Cup and just couldn't really finish after contesting the pace.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that was the real test for him. And it's not like he was, even competitive in that race, David. I mean, obviously distance is okay for him. It's quality and class is a totally different question.
I suppose if you think the number 6, Lambbeath, can translate his best dirt form to the turf, he becomes a contender in this race because he did earn a 100 buyer 2 back going a similar distance to this on the dirt in the Temperance Hill at Oaklawn. But Mike, you look at his pedigree, there is a little bit of turf on the dam side. There's always some turf to find in these Juddmonte pedigrees that go back a ways, but he's by Arrogate. Arrogate personally is not my favorite turf sire, and it bothers me a little bit that prior connections, including Bill Mott, never really looked to get this horse on the turf earlier in his career.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the other thing too, that they're going to now switch into turf for the first time. They're going to do it, over these, longer distances, which to me isn't necessarily a vote of confidence. I know he handles distances his race 2 starts back was fine. His other races don't really, in my opinion, give him much of a chance. And here I'm like you, I don't like his pedigree enough.
And it should be noted that older dirt marathon division feels like a lot of the races have been going away. There probably is nowhere for him to run if he wants a race like that. So that's probably why he's going to the turf. The number 7 is Anglopile. And Mike, we've done videos with Anglopile in them before. I think I'm a fan of this horse. I always try to make some sort of case for him. Though watching his last race, and we'll take a look at the replay of the Man of War, I could argue that he got a slightly tougher trip than Far Bridge, who had things break perfectly for him as he slipped through on the inside, whereas Anglopile had to go 3 wide to make his move on the far turn. As I watched the stretch run of this race, though, Mike, I still never felt like Anglopile was getting to him. Farbridge is just flicking his ears back and forth. You could see he's playing around on the front end. Anglopile was all out, and he still can't make any inroads into Farbridge's lead at the end of this race. So Anglopile is a hard-trying horse. When the trip works out, he's really good. I just think at the upper levels, maybe he's proven at this point he's not quite good enough to beat the best turf marathoners out there. And you do always have to wonder about the trip he's going to pull, because he just seems like a horse that can be a magnet for trouble at different points in his career.
Yeah, exactly. This doesn't have a lot of positional speed. That's a real issue for him. He just always winds up with a bunch of horses he has to pass in the stretch, and it's not an easy thing to do. He's fine, and if things break his way, and and some other horses run into some trouble, can he beat this field? Yeah, he can, because he's going to show up and he's going to run his race, David. I'm just not going to use him on top.
The number 8 Highway Robber is one of those horses I was mentioning earlier, who was entered at Saratoga last week, actually in the Grade 1 Manhattan. I think his connections decided this would be a better spot for him as they scratched early out of that race to run here, going a distance that probably is more proven to work for him, the 1 3/8. He's a horse that really blossomed when they stretched out to these marathon distances towards the end of last year. He won a really strong edition of the Grade 3 Sycamore at Keeneland back in October. They sent him overseas with a European trainer. Didn't work out in one start in Dubai, but he came back into Brian Lynch's barn for the Grade 1 Turf Classic on Derby Day and actually ran really well in that race. Now, you can question the quality of a race where the entire field was bunched up at the end, but we did see the runner-up Mercante come back to run well in his next start, winning next time. So that felt like a good return to form for Highway Robber, and now he's getting back to a distance that we just know works for him.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's an easy horse to like in this race. I think he did run well off the layoff in that Grade 1 last time. That's not my favorite race of all time, and I've been sort of reluctant to take horses back out of it. But he ran fine in that. And the bigger point, I think, is the one you were referencing, is that he was just getting better with every start last year. And now he gets to go a little bit longer in distance here. And I think that really works for him too. The one thing that held me back about him, David, is, first of all, again, I don't like the Turf Classic that much. He's going to get bet out of that race. But also, just as far as that Sycamore goes, and that was a good field and he got the job done. But that was a wicked pace. For a race run at that distance, that was a wicked pace. They went 23 and then 46 to the half in that race, and it just set it up for the closers.
The number 9, Versstopen, is a horse that isn't always the most trustworthy sort. He'll go in and out of form, but when he produces his best effort, he definitely stacks up against a field like this. And it seems like we saw one of his better efforts last time in the Louisville, Mike, where he was run down in the late stages by Utah Beach, but Frankie Dettori put him forward in that race. He launched an early move to take over approaching the quarter pole, had this horse in a drive for a long time, and he was still trying to fight back at the end when Utah Beach ran past him. Those two were well ahead of the rest. So it seemed like, at least that day, Versstopen got back into top form. And you look back at the Elkhorn, a race that multiple horses here are coming out of. He did not have an ideal trip in there either, because he was 3 to 4 wide around most turns in a race where the winner got to save all the ground. So maybe that could make up the gap between those two horses. And it feels like he'll be a decent price in this race.
I agree. He definitely got out-tripped 2 starts back, and I was willing to be very lenient there. I thought he ran okay last time. I don't know that I thought that Dettori did anything wrong in that race. I mean, he opened up on that field. He had a big lead in the stretch, and he just couldn't hold it. He's another horse. He's just so consistent, and he can get the right trip in this race, and you know that he's going to show up and run his race. And he might even be on the lead in the stretch again. So he's not a horse that I wanted to sit here and knock all that much. I've just never really liked him that much, Dave. I never really want to bet this horse in any of his races, but if he's a big price and you like him, I'm not going to knock him.
The number 10, Segoy, almost got the job done in this race last year when they ran the 2024 Chorleywood. He finished right in between Web Slinger and Bold Act, who were two very high-quality horses at that point in time. Now, since then, Segoy has had mixed results. He did earn a victory in the John B. Connolly Turf Cup at Sam Houston, a race that Mike Maker seems to have a lot of success in, and this horse really gutted it out over Versstopen, who is drawn right alongside him in the starting gate for this race. Since then, Mike, the Gulfstream race didn't work out. I'll forgive that. Some horses just don't love that Gulfstream Park turf course. But he got back to Churchill in the Louisville last time, one of the few horses coming out of that race, and he's the one that I could say really did not get a good trip. He was drawn in the far outside post, but Luan Machado is a completely different type of rider than Luis Saez is, who's getting on in here. Machado just doesn't really seem to ride too many horses aggressively, and he was just indecisive, putting this horse in mid-pack. He got stuck 3 to 4 wide around every turn, and he made a bit of a move after Versstopen on the far turn, flattened out at the end. He is so much better than that when he is forwardly placed. And I'm just hoping, drawing outside again, Saez is way more aggressive and tries to get a forward position with him.
Yeah, that's how you have to ride him. I'm with you. I did not care for the trip that he was given in his most recent start. You referenced this race last year too, David, where it's another race where they kind of won a solid pace in that race. I mean, listen, Webslinger won it. If he wins a race, you know where he came from. He came from way in the back, as did Bold Act in that race. And this horse was right involved in the pace the entire way. We've already talked about the Highway Robber race, the Sycamore last October. A wicked pace in that race, and he was right up close to it. This horse could be a little dirtied up here.
Let's take a look at our picks for this race, Mike, and it feels like one where you can go in multiple different directions. The horses that we each have on top, I think, are nowhere in each other's top four, but it is that kind of race. Yeah. You went for the number 4, Rebel Red.
Yeah, I just want to give this horse a chance to rebound. We already talked about all the questions surrounding him as far as the trip goes, but I think if he gets the right one, he can go with these horses. Even cutting back a little bit here to 11 furlongs, I think actually really helps this horse. If he gets the right trip, I think he can win.
I see we both have respect for the number 8 Highway Robber, who in a lot of ways is the horse to beat. I've got Versstopen in there at what could be a price, but the horse I really wanted to bet is the number 10 Segoy. As you were saying, I just feel like he's a little dirtied up off the recent races, hasn't gotten the trips that he really needs to be successful, and maybe he can get it here if he gets a more aggressive ride with Luis Saez getting aboard from this far outside post position. So 10, 8, 9, 3 for me, and 4, 3, 8, 1 for Mike in the feature race at Churchill Downs on Saturday, race 10, the Chorleywood. Good luck if you're playing the races this weekend.